The Winter Tree by Georgina Lewis. Read by Jill Greenacre. Chapter 15. The Wood. I stayed with them until the third week in January. Hester seemed remarkably well. The nurse came every day at first and taught her how to breastfeed the baby. For a week or two after the birth, I said nothing about leaving, although I was beginning to worry about Mother again, for Lissy's letters were not as reassuring as I might have hoped. She wrote that Mother had become a great deal thinner in a short time, and that the doctor had advised the odd days spent completely in bed, although other than her blood pressure, he couldn't find anything wrong. There was talk of taking her to hospital for tests in a few months' time if she didn't pick up with the spring. And it all sounded faintly ominous despite the doctor's reassurance. Mother herself wrote a line or two to say we were not to worry in the least, as Lissy and Father were coping well without me, and to stay as long as Hester needed me there, and to be sure not to let Hester lay the baby down on her back in case she was sick, and for Hester not to lift anything heavy straight after the birth, or dreadful things might happen to her insides. I wrote back to tell them all the news, and David wrote too. His parents came over once or twice with Jim to see the baby, but didn't stay long. They cooed and smiled at Elizabeth and said how like David as a baby she was. But there was a slight coolness in their attitude to Hester, and it puzzled me slightly at the time, although I don't think Hester noticed. David's mother was very gushing. "Oh, she's lovely, David, and so like you were at this age. Look at the dear little tufts of hair round the back here. Thank goodness she's not a redhead. I was so afraid she might be, you know. So relieved to find she isn't. Ginger is such a dreadful colour. I think she's going to be your colour, David, with perhaps your grandmother's blue eyes. No, don't touch her, James. Hester wouldn't like it." And she jiggled and bounced the little bundle about in her arms until it burped, and a trickle of milk ran down the minute chin. "Oh dear," she said in slight displeasure. "Take her, Hester, will you? I'm rather afraid she's going to be sick, and I don't really want the smell on my coat." David's father looked through the window and studied the road outside, as if the subject of babies might go away if it was ignored, and considered whether it was likely to snow again. James sat on the settee and scowled and kicked at the chair next to him with absent-minded aggression, and made faces at the baby when he thought no one was looking. They left soon afterwards, and when Hester disappeared upstairs with Elizabeth, I told David I thought it was time I went home. "Must you go, Abigail?" David asked me. "It's been wonderful having you here. Hester is a different person when you're around." "I can't really believe that," I told him, laughing. "Yes, really, you have no idea how different. Must you go?" "I really ought to, David, yet I'm so afraid of upsetting Hester's happiness at the moment. I'm also worried about Mother. Lissy didn't sound too happy in her last letter. I really think I ought to go. Would you like me to tell Hester?" "I think it would be better coming from you," he said. And so, sitting on her bed a week after Christmas, I told her that I decided to go home. She dismissed my carefully worded speech with a wave. "Go home? No, of course you can't, Abby. We want you here for ages yet. But I can't think about that now. Look at Elizabeth. Don't you think she's the most marvellous thing that ever happened to anybody ever before? I thought I was happy once long ago, but I was wrong, Abby. I'm happy now. I'm so happy I could die. I didn't know it was possible to feel so happy." And indeed, she did seem almost delirious with her joy. But after the middle of January, the weather turned suddenly milder, and I made up my mind. Hester was coping well with the baby and very much absorbed in her own happiness. Every time it made a sound, she picked the little creature up and held it to her, murmuring to it and whispering in its shell-like ears. 100 times a day she would look at it lying asleep beside their bed in the drawer which served as a cot. She was radiant with joy. All the strange tension of the previous month seemed to have gone, and in my eagerness to see it so, I believed that she was happy at last. I went home in melting slush in time for Perrin's wedding. I found Mother very much thinner, but desperately eager for all my news. Apparently, she still stayed in bed each morning, and the rest seemed to have been doing her good. I sat on the side of her bed while she caught at my hand and asked me ceaseless questions. "When is she going to bring the baby to see me, Abby?" she asked. "I'm so gasping to see my grandchild, I can't wait much longer. Is David pleased? Does the babe take after him, do you think? He's a kind boy. He wrote to us after the birth, telling us all about how you coped with it all. He's full of praise for you, my love. Said he don't know how they would have managed without you. He's a lovely chap, is David. I know he'll make Hester happy. Wasn't that thoughtful, Ab, don't you think, writing to tell us about the little dear? I wish that Hester could have dropped me a line or two as well, but there. I suppose she's awful busy with the baby and couldn't spare the time. I'm sure she'll write soon, Mother, I told her, patting her hand. She sends her love and a big kiss from the baby. Oh, it's good to be home again, although Lizzie seems to have coped very well. That girl has been an angel, Mother told me proudly. She made Thomas tidy his room every morning before school. You know how awful untidy he can be. Well, Lizzie went in there every morning to check it, and she wouldn't give him no breakfast until he'd put his nightclothes away and made his bread all proper and tidied his table. Laugh? Father and I nearly split ourselves laughing on the quiet to hear them at it. But we didn't dare let her hear us. She was some serious about it. She sobered, looking closely at me. And you, my love, here I am going on and on about what's been happening here, and you're the one with all the news. Come on now, I want to hear everything. Is the baby like her? Is the precious little child like my Hester? Here, Abby, fancy you being with her when the baby was born. My dear life, we never thought of that, did we? We never guessed that might happen. Were you frightened, my handsome, when it started? Not frightened, Mother. I didn't realise what was happening until it was too late to be frightened. What did the doctor say? She asked me eagerly, eyes gleaming. Here, did he think you acted well, delivering the child alone? Dear life and soul, I wish it had been me. I'd have told her, Abby. I'd have told her when to push and when to hold still. I laughed. There wasn't much chance to tell her anything, Mother. She seemed to know what to do all on her own. Besides, it all happened so quick. 1 minute she was having pains, the next it was all over. And the babe, did it cry straight off? You smacked his little bottom, didn't you, Ab? That gets them crying straight away. I remember Lissy wouldn't cry at first, and the nurse had to give her a sound wallop to start her off. Perrin now, he was born yelling, that boy. Such a loud holler he had. I can't remember with you, my love. I was so mazed, you being my first. 'Tis all so long ago now. But what of the baby, Abby? Is she auburn, like my Hester? No, not auburn. More fairish, I think, like David. Very small and pretty, and a strong little thing. As for smacking her bottom, well, I didn't really need to. She started to breathe straight away. The doctor said we did the best thing in the circumstances. Just keep her warm and not try to cut the cord. He said it was a very straightforward birth, no complications, and that Hester was very lucky to get it over with so quickly. Your instructions helped her a lot, Mother. We were reading them from your letter as the baby was being born. Is that true, Abby? My instructions to Hester? Well, fancy that now. Reading them as the babe was born. Oh, my dear life, that do make me feel glad. Glad to have been of use. Almost like I was there. Did Hester find the breathing helped? Very helpful, Mother. And the bit about not going to bed too soon, but walking about as long as possible. You've no idea how useful it all was to her. All your advice, it was all so helpful. I was glad of it too, not knowing what to expect. She sank back on the pillows, her face aglow. I'm glad of that, Abby, awful glad. Perhaps it would have been a good idea to have gone through it with you too, instead of only writing to Hester. I could have gone through it with you before you left with Perrin, couldn't I? Told you what might happen. But no matter, you did just the right thing, my girl. Did I, Mother? Yes, you did. I told you, Abby, you should have been a nurse. I told you that, didn't I? You've got an awful reassuring way with you, Abby, when people do need you. A solidness, Mother? Solid? Yes, I suppose you could say solid, but calm and kind and quiet with it, and sort of efficient. Hester says I'm very like you, Mother, so the credit is all yours. Did Hester say that? Did she really? Oh, Abby, what 3 lovely girls I've got. And Lissy managing so well while you were away too. And here, Abby, Veronica braves have been here 100 times a week, asking for news of Hester and them. Makes out she's awful friendly with Hester. Close as 2 pilchards, you think they were, by her account. Any news of my 2 dear friends yet? She asks, coming up the path or poking her head over the gate. You know how she is, Ab, all pink and peering about. Quite a pest she was at times, with me being stuck here in bed. Liz dealt with her, though. Veronica, she says to her, don't trouble to keep coming here for news. I'll let you know the minute there is any. I'll come to your house and tell 'ee. She hadn't been back since, although Liz did go and tell her when we heard 'twas a little girl. Do you know that girl's been like a mother to me? I don't believe Thomas has even noticed you've been gone. He's been that well fed. Now you're back, how does Father look to you, Abby? Do you find him looking well? Yes, well, but tired, Mother, and very worried about you. He has been worried, I must admit. He's had the worry of Hester as well as me. Oh, he don't say much, I know, but he do worry about things. He hasn't been playing his old fiddle as much as I'd like to see him do, not lately. Moping about the house he's been, running up and down the stairs to me day and night. And ringing? He's hardly been to the church since Christmas. George wanted him for a peal of triples a week or two back, but he wouldn't go. What do you think of that, Abby? Have you ever known Father to refuse a peal before? No, I said, I don't think I ever have. Very stubborn he was about it too. No, George, says he, Susan do need me here with her, with our Abby away. You'll have to get someone else. Get Harry to do it for ye. Harry's ringing the 4, says George. I need you for trebling, Garfield. Well, I can't do it, says Father. You'll have to ring 2 bells, George, and take treble as well, or get someone else in. Very emphatic he was, Abby. He wouldn't budge. You should have heard him. Father can be awful stubborn at times. Good for Father. And so what do they do? Oh, Perrin got a young chap over from Liskeard, some ringing friend of his and Jen's dad. Anyway, they got the peal, so everyone was happy. But Father wouldn't budge. My place is here with Susan, he said, and he stuck to it. What was the peal for, Mother? I asked her. Oh, some reason or other. When did George Pascoe ever need an excuse to ring a peal? He'd have Father up there every day to ring summit if he had his way. Nice young fellow, though, Abby. Young fellow? George Pascoe? No, my love, the young chap who came for the treble. Liz was very taken with him. Richard something, didn't catch his other name. A good bit older than Perrin, I believe he is, a friend of Jen's dad. She's a nice girl, Abby is, Jennifer. You'd like her. I do believe she'll make Perrin very happy. Pity to start off like they are, but sometimes I think it don't matter very much in the long run. Do you, my love? They've got the wedding all set for Saturday week up to church, and they're coming back along here for a bite to eat and a drop of Father's wine after. Liz is to be bridesmaid again, but 'tis only to be a very small family affair, things being as they are. You do know about their baby, don't you, Abby? Perrin says he told you before Christmas. Yes, he did, Mother. Were you very upset? Was Father? She shrugged and gave me a rueful smile. These things happen, Abby. They've happened before and they'll happen again in this old world, and they'll be happy together. I know they will. Perrin's a bright lad. He knows just where he's to, that boy. He's got it all worked out already. I don't never worry about my Perrin. He do know exactly where he's going. Always has. The following Saturday, Perrin and Jennifer Enroy were married, very quietly, by our vicar in the freezing church with only a handful of us there. It seemed a marked contrast to the frantic preparations for Hester's wedding almost a year before. Yet in a strange way there was much more of a depth in it. Perrin wore his wedding suit. Jennifer, slightly tubby round the waist, had on a quiet dress of cornflower blue. I liked Jennifer at first sight. She had dark brown eyes that darted everywhere and a quick tongue and ready humour. The church was almost empty. Jennifer's father had a family friend or two on their side, and just our family and Joseph on ours. In spite of the cold, there was something there that had been strangely missing at Hester's wedding, and, after the vicar had pronounced them man and wife, I saw their hands seek out and reach for each other's when they thought that no one saw them. Joseph was best man, with a flower in his buttonhole. Being so few of us there, we all trooped in behind them when they went into the vestry to sign the register, with Father and Jennifer's father as witnesses. And I saw Perrin look at Jennifer sideways and give her a quick, intimate wink, as if to say, "There, it's done, and I've got you now." And Jennifer's face, upturned to him, flashed open in the light from a window with a smile for him alone that could only be described as radiant. Afterwards, at home, we had our small party, and the vicar came to swell the numbers. Lizzie had made a cake for them, a lumpy, shapeless heart with their names upon the top in pink icing, and it was elaborately admired. Lizzie, with blushing pride, passed round the plates, and we ate cheese and fish paste sandwiches and drank their health with Father's carrot wine. "The best one," said Father proudly, nodding at his glassful cheeks aglow. "Good luck to you both, my son. You've chosen a good girl there." The transient embarrassment which anyone might have felt pondering upon his particular choice of adjective was quickly masked by Thomas knocking over a small table with a plate of sandwiches upon it and treading on a cheese sandwich, turning everyone's attention to him. Joseph, as best man, proposed a toast and went very red. Being such a silent man, I think it took supreme courage to stand up at all in company, let alone speak to us, but he did it, flushing scarlet to the roots of his hair, and sat down very suddenly afterwards, even the tips of his rather well-shaped ears glowing from a mixture of embarrassment and wine. To cover it, he nodded vigorously in the direction of the bride and groom, and we all turned to look at them. And they looked happy, the two of them. Perrin held her hand and put his arm around her with an obvious pride and made a short speech. Jennifer, in her cornflower-coloured dress, flushed, and her bright eyes darted about us all like butterflies in the sun. Even when her slight thickening round the waist was lightly and jovially mentioned, the glow did not leave her eyes, although at times it did seem to me that a slight defensiveness lurked at the back of them. Mother bustled about as she always used to do, and even if they noticed it, no one remarked about her loss of weight. Perhaps it was Hester's absence that made the air a little lighter, or perhaps it was the wine, but we all relaxed and talked and laughed with an easy familiarity in a way that we had not done for years. The vicar stood talking to Lissy, who, with eyes lowered and cheeks very red, cast little glances sideways at the cake from time to time, as if to reassure herself that it was disappearing with suitable speed. Thomas crawled silently about beneath the righted table, collecting bits of fallen sandwich, eating what was respectable and scattering the crumbs of what was not along the outside of the kitchen windowsill. Mother told him to close the window or we'd all catch pneumonia from the draught, and he did so. But for the rest of the party, he sat with quiet concentration on the draining board, with his watered wine beside him and his pencil in his hand, drawing the birds that came to peck at the bits of cheese and squash bread arranged along the sill. He'd hold his breath and frown if we came through to the kitchen for more wine or tea or bread and butter, for fear we should startle them away. Mother sighed and looked helplessly at me and said, "What a lad, Abby, always drawing summat," in exasperated pride. "Do you want more cake, my handsome?" she asked him, but he shook his head and frowned and waved her away. He bent over his paper and then looked up to peer more closely at the birds as they fluttered down to land on the sill outside, and I don't think he even heard her. Mother was very busy, rushing about with plates and egg cups, Father's pantry industry being rather short of such refinements as wine glasses and cups of tea. "For goodness sake, Susan, sit down," said Father, holding a ridiculously small sandwich in his huge hands and sipping enthusiastically at his wine. "You've done nothing but run about after them all. Leave 'em be. Come and sit down." "In a moment, Garfield," Mother called back over her shoulder. "I'll just get Joseph another cup of tea. There now, I'm back again. Another bit of cake, Joseph. There you are, my handsome. I've brought you a drop more tea." Joseph, balancing a plate with wedding cake upon it in one hand, an egg cup in the other, and a cup of saucer on one knee, smiled his self-conscious social smile, refused more cake, but accepted the tea. Mother shook the plate under his nose until I was afraid the slices of cake would fall off onto him with their own momentum. He surrendered and took one, and Mother beamed at him. "Lovely cake, isn't it? Of course, Hester's wedding was a much bigger affair, wasn't it, Abby?" she said. "Go on, Joseph, have another piece as well, my handsome. It'll save me coming back again. 'Tis such a pity she's not here for this one. Perrin would have dearly liked her here, but it's so cold out and the babe only a month old. Another piece, Joseph? No? Oh dear, yes. Perrin was some disappointed, wasn't he, Abby?" Actually, I thought Perrin quite oblivious to the very existence of Hester on this day of all days, but I nodded to keep her happy. The blinds had come down in Joseph's face. "You haven't seen Hester for a long time now, have you, Joseph?" Mother was saying. She shook the cake plate at him again. "Sure you won't have another piece? You'll get the chance soon, I shouldn't wonder. We're expecting her home soon on a visit. With the babe, of course, and David too, if the shop can spare him. Be nice, won't it, Ab, to have Hester home again?" I smiled at her and said yes it would, and why didn't she go and offer cake to the vicar, who looked hungry, and she went bustling off. I knew that even if the vicar couldn't eat more cake, Lissy was certainly obliged, being of an age to yearn for food. I was afraid she was beginning to look more than a little plump. Her rosy face shone at the sight of more cake, and when the vicar politely took another piece from the proffered plate, Lissy took one too. "My dear, this is excellent," the vicar said, munching heartily. Most excellent. What have you put in it? Butter? Slight touch of nutmeg? No? Well, it's the vanilla essence that gives it the depth of flavour. Am I correct? I thought so. And do I detect a trace of essence of lemon too? Which was exactly the sort of conversation that Lizzie adored. Later, Father went to get his violin from the shed up in the orchard and brought it into the living room. We cleared the centre of the room of chairs and Father moved towards his favourite armchair, a hugely cumbersome piece of furniture with 6-inch wide armrests and a massive back with piping cord and fringe braid all over it, sat on the arm of it and tenderly took out his violin. Joseph applied a match to his pipe, leaned back and watched him through the haze of smoke. Father took out a piece of soft cloth and began to polish the violin, turning it over in his hands, winding up the bowscrew, rubbing rosin on the hairs, a bit reluctant all of a sudden to play in front of us all. "Oh, go on, Father," begged Lizzie. "Do play something nice and happy, then we can all dance." "Yes, please," said Jennifer from the settee, where she and Perrin sat holding hands. "I haven't heard you play yet, and I've got to get used to it sometime, haven't I?" There was a burst of laughter at this. Father shot a look at Perrin, who said, "Come on, Garfield, get on with it," as one man to another instead of as son to father, which made Father grin quietly to himself and pick up the bow. The vicar nodded earnestly. "Come, Garfield, there should always be music at the wedding, should there not?" "Yes, do play, Father," I said quietly in his ear. They didn't have the organ or the bells, so let them have a bit of music now. Play them a bit like you play on a spring morning in your shed. Father hesitated, cleared his throat and coughed his small embarrassed cough and looked shy, and I could see he was longing to, but he looked up at Mother through his eyebrows and said gruffly, "No, better not. It worries your mother. She don't like to hear me play." "Oh, nonsense," said Mother in a rush, all flustered. "I love to hear the happy sound of it. 'Tis the sad lamenting bits I can't abide, like the wind come roaring down from that all ancient windy hill behind the church. He always plays those bits up in the shed, Vicar, but play a happy bit of a tune, Garfield. The piece like a bit of spring water in the mornings. The bit like the salad, you know, that bit I dearly love, like the lettuces growing and all that." And she sat down, quite out of breath and overwhelmed at so long a speech with everybody looking at her. For she had really a shy little soul, had Mother, underneath all her upholstery. So Father tuned his violin and picked up the notes from it with his fingers, one by one, to check them for pitch. And we all leaned slightly forward in our chairs to listen. When he'd got the notes quite true, he tucked the violin beneath his chin, picked up the bow and applied it to the strings and drew, by way of introduction, before he began the proper piece, a long and cheerful sound from it, like a light cascade of summer water. As he began to play in earnest, a vacant look crept across his face. It was as if Father Soul were not there at all, but somewhere else, among the pebbles of a riverbed or flitting in the shallows, and I saw the vicar looking at him in surprise and raise his eyebrows quietly to himself, as if in silent tribute to the music. Jennifer's father sat back in the shadows and smiled benignly round upon us all. He was a roundish little man with the same dark, darting eyes as Jennifer. He reminded me of a Father Christmas, with his little tufts of fluffy white hair and a mellow look in his eye that I don't think was just Father's wine. I wondered, looking from him to Jennifer over on the sofa with Perrin, what her mother had been like, and could guess she had been a dark-haired woman, light and slim like Jennifer might well be without the bulge. We waited for Thomas and Lizzie to dance, but they were growing up and had gone suddenly very shy. "Come along, you two young people," nodded the vicar encouragingly above the music. "It's up to you to start us off." But they grinned shyly and shook their heads, and no one seemed to mind. We just sat round listening to Father and nodding our heads and tapping our feet in time with the changing rhythms. Perrin and Jennifer sat and held hands in a comfortable silence. I sat in my own quiet corner and looked secretly around the living room at the 10 of us, at the 9 faces I could see and the 10 bodies, and wondered if it would have been different if Hester had been there as well. I tried to steal a look at Joseph when I thought no one was looking. Thomas had finished drawing birds and was busy lining up Joseph's spent matches into a pattern on the arm of a chair. Mother sat on the far side of the room by the kitchen door, her cheeks flushed and her eyes glowing with pride. Her face thinner than I'd known it for years, but still round and familiar as my hand, with the dear lines of it slightly deeper than I remembered prior to Christmas. Father was playing a piece of music with mountains in it now, great sweeps of sound, full of summer and a little jig now and then of dancing steps. The smell of roses was in the music and new-mown hay. The faces round the room grew still and quiet, as if each one remembered something of his or her own, precious to themselves, and I stole my look at Joseph. He was sitting back in the chair, pipe in his hand, his dark head against the frame, motionless, listening. As I watched, his eyes moved round the room until they came to rest on a little patch of floor before the stove, where so many years before Mother had bathed the child Hester. As I watched his face, it seemed to me that I saw before him a small girl, thin and slight, wearing a faded green dress, a girl with damp hair the colour of marigolds falling about her shoulders. She stood before him in the living room on that late autumn morning of Joseph's young manhood, straight and glowing as a fairy child newly come from the haunts of heaven, and held out her arms to him. And Joseph, as he had never done upon that distant morning, moved towards her and gathered her into his own arms and held her close against his breast. And just for a little while there was rapture in the world. Father stopped suddenly with a scrape and flourish, and we all remained motionless for a few seconds, listening to echoes. And then suddenly there was talking, and a tide of laughter rippled round the room. Father put away the violin and bow, and passed around another glass of wine, dandelion this time. Lissy passed around more cake, and Mother and I poured out more tea. Lissy put down the cake plate and went to sit on the floor at Jennifer's feet. Joseph looked up as she passed and gave her a quick, shy grin. She flushed scarlet, and all the while she sat with Jennifer, swapping recipes for saffron cake and bread and splits, with all the self-assurance of a much-married woman in her plump pink and goldness. She looked more of a child than ever. Then they went on to the subject of babies, and I heard them discussing nappies, wind and pushchairs in low voices. Lissy, aware of Joseph's proximity, tried to include him in their conversation, blushed and stumbled on her words, and cast him shy pink looks of adolescent reverence. And Joseph, like the kind and considerate man he was, smiled to himself, nodded when she turned to speak to him, and even answered occasionally. The vicar took up a conversation with Jennifer's father, whom we had been invited to call Sam, and I heard them arguing good-naturedly about ringing, pleased to have a common interest. Father pricked up his ears, tucked his violin case safely under the sofa, and joined them. I heard them arguing about the relative merits of grandsire and something called plain Bob, and Father joining in to argue in favour of something called Stedman, which I think was something to do with ringing, but which sounded to me like a sort of sewing machine. "I'm a grandsire man myself," Sam was saying, with rosy enthusiasm. The vicar nodded sagely into his wine-glass. He'd been honoured with the wine-glass along with the happy couple, while the rest of us drank out of egg cups, and Father at times, I noticed, out of a flower vase, and said, "Yes, but it's not the ideal basic method. You must surely agree there. Plain Bob is undoubtedly a more thorough grounding. Progress to grandsire, certainly, but initially a good solid foundation of plain Bob to set them on a straight and narrow, as it were." "Ah," said Father eagerly. "Stedman, now there's a method." "Plain Hunt," Sam went on earnestly. "We do start our lads off with Plain Hunt and then go on to grandsire." "Plain Hunt has its uses as an introduction, certainly, but it hardly merits consideration as a method, does it now?" said the vicar, somewhat severely. "Tell me, do you go in for Cambridge much in your part of the world?" "Stedman now," said Father hopefully. "Not Cambridge," said Sam, "at least not lately, but we did get a band together for a touch of double Norwich about 3 weeks ago." The vicar raised his eyebrows and appeared deeply impressed. Father coughed pointedly. But Stedman, I always say. Remarkable achievement, said the vicar, sipping enthusiastically from his glass. Double Norwich, eh? Do you hear that, Garfield? I wonder if our lads could manage that, Quite an idea, is it not? And tell me, Mr. Enery, have you much experience of London surprise? Sam's eyes glowed like lamps in his rosy face. He nodded, and the vicar nodded back, and they were off, comparing things they call methods and tossing mysterious words like Warkworth and Extents and Beverley about, and I was lost. I wandered out to Mother, picking my way carefully across Thomas and his pencils, and found her in the kitchen cutting sandwiches. Not more food, Mother, surely, I said. They've all had plenty to eat. You're never cutting more sandwiches for them, are you? She gave me a little sheepish smile and said, no, these were for Perrin and Jennifer to take home with them to their flat, there being plenty of food left, and did I like Jennifer? I said yes very much, and was sure they would be happy together. She looked suddenly stricken, as though a distant memory had just occurred to her, and said to me in a low voice, oh dear, Abby, perhaps I shouldn't have mentioned her to Joseph, do you think? Did he mind much, do you suppose, Ab? I was that pleased to see him talking so nice to Father and them, and being best man and making his little speech and that. I quite forgot what you told me that time. You know, his feelings for Hester. Did I go on a bit, do you think? And him perhaps missing her too? Perhaps he'd liked her to have been here with us. But then perhaps he'd have been more shy if she'd have come and not said anything at all. Which was almost the first time I'd ever been aware of any perspicacity in Mother. I wandered back to them in the living room and was met by such a warm atmosphere of talk, of Lissy's pink and gold blushes and the smell of wine and Joseph's tobacco smoke, that fondness for them all overwhelmed me, and I felt a sudden aching sadness, like a memory going forwards instead of back, for somehow it came to me then that this might well be our last complete family gathering, and that without Hester there, we were more relaxed than we had been for years. After the wedding, at the end of January, the weather changed abruptly, and we huddled round the fire in a winter such as we'd not known for many years. Snow lay on the ground all through February, which was most unusual for us so far in the west. The bitter weather held us in an icy grip of spurious white peace. There had been no news from Hester for weeks now, and in the depth of our snowbound world, what news could have got through anyway? For days and days the postman didn't call, the milk froze on the doorstep, and in the lanes dead birds fell at every turn, their poor frozen bodies lying stiff and ruffled on the ruin of last year's leaf. After the snow came hail and wind, sleeting off the old hill with icy vehemence, and after the hail more snow. March came before it thawed properly, and trickled down the lanes in soggy rivulets, and dripped with dreary persistence off the outhouse roof. Mother was very poorly. She had been failing slowly for some weeks, and I think only the thought of seeing Hester's baby kept her going. Don't worry, I would tell her 100 times a day. When the warmer weather comes, she'll bring the babe to see you, Mother. Don't you fret. But Abby, Mother said wearily, I want to see them now. She said it over and over again. The spring'll be too late. I want to see them now. Tell her to come, Abby. She'll listen to you. Tell Hester I want to see my grandchild now. You could write to her, Abby. Tell her now. But Mother dear, I argued helplessly, it's so cold. You wouldn't want the little thing to catch pneumonia, would you? It's freezing cold outside, and Hester would have to carry her all the way from the train. She'll come in the warmer weather as soon as she can. You'll see. You could ask Vicar to fetch her in his car, pleaded Mother. Oh, please, Abby. I don't like to ask him, Mother. He'd have offered if he thought it a good idea. Besides, you're very poorly at the moment. Let Hester bring the baby when you're stronger, in the spring. The doctor says your blood pressure is getting better every day you rest, and excitement is the last thing you need. She'll come in the spring, Mother. Don't you worry. Hester is longing to come home and show you the baby. But when spring did come, and Hester brought the babe to see us, it was to Mother's funeral.